You're listening to the Infinite Banking Mastery Podcast. Did you know that you could build a tax-free pool of wealth that's liquid and accessible all your life while building your retirement nest egg? Gain full control of your financial future and stop relying on the government and banks. The wealthy have already discovered this wealth-building secret. Now it's your turn to get financially secure without following the conventional wisdom that keeps you in debt to banks. Now here's your host, Valerie LaRocque.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Hope you all had a fabulous week. I wanted to talk today about churches and can churches implement IBC? Every so often I will get that question, but churches can implement IBC, and it's pretty great. It's pretty great for churches. Since they are a 501c3 entity, they are considered tax-free entities from federal income tax. And so we can build the policy even more favorable than we otherwise can for individuals. Because when we're building policies for individuals or businesses owning policies on individuals, we're always looking for that MEC line. Where's the MEC line? And we have to structure it in a certain way so that the policy doesn't become a MEC and become taxable. We do not want the taxes. And so that's always something that we are balancing premium and paid-up additions versus base and term insurance riders and all these factors to make sure that the policy does not project out to become a MEC. Well, when it comes to a church, since they are a tax-free entity, well, we don't have to worry about that. So we can actually go right on ahead and MEC that policy, and it will make no difference to the church because they don't have to pay taxes on that. Having the ability to MEC the policy allows us to make and build that policy in an even more favorable fashion for cash value accumulation. And so it's going to grow pretty darn well. It's going to look great. That makes it a great location for the church to store funds because once they receive the tithing in and giving, and then they pay the bills and expenses and payroll and everything, they're going to need a place to store that cash. And what better place than a whole life policy? I can't think of a one. It's going to be a whole lot better to store that money inside of a whole life policy than a typical bank savings account where the interest on that is next to nothing generally. Of course, right now, I know there's places to store cash at the bank that are higher than they have been in years, higher interest rates, CDs and such, but the life insurance policy is going to have that rate guaranteed for the rest of the life of the insured. Unlike the bank CD or, say, a money market account, which are both highly liquid and have higher rates right now, the whole life policy is going to have those rates guaranteed for many, many years until the insured person passes away. And so you can build on that rather than having that money short-term in one of these other locations. Yeah, it's great for a while, but then it's not going to be great. Then it's going to lower back down at some future point. I'm quite sure of that. And you could have had your money building with uninterrupted compounding interest for more time had you started a whole life policy. Because remember, time is our greatest asset. The longer we have the policy in force, the greater it becomes, the greater the cash value. And let's not forget that there are dividends also being added into that account, just building it even more. I certainly do think it's a much better location than, say, having extra funds at the church and wanting to put them somewhere to grow, to do more good for the people in the community, and then putting it in the stock market. I don't think that's a great idea because these church members have tithed their money. They expected the church to do something good with it, bless others, bless ministries, communities. And if there's a bad day in the stock market and half of it is lost, I don't think that's what anybody wanted to happen with their tithing money. So that's why I think it's just an extra great vehicle, whole life for a church. Now you might be wondering, well, who can we insure at the church? Who are we going to put this whole life policy on? Whose life? Well, certainly the lead pastor as a starting point. Other people that can be insured, the elders, board members of the church, even donors. Large donors, large tithers can potentially be insured. So for example, let's say there's a large donor donating $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year or more, and they've been consistent. They consistently tithe this much, maybe for say 10 years or more. So long as they have a demonstrable history of that giving, it's been documented and the church has documentation of them giving every year, roughly for 10 years, about that amount, then they are likely to be able to be insured. And so if that person's giving 20, 30,000, maybe they are insured for 20 or 30,000, or maybe they can be insured for 20 or 30,000 a year times 10 years, because if that person was to pass away, you'd miss out on that year's giving, but it's possible to insure for more years than just the one. Now, for a large donor like that that's consistently giving every year a large amount, the church does have an insurable interest in that person. And I believe that oftentimes those donors would want the church to have something if they pass away and are not able to give the amount of money that they intended for the rest of their lifespan. I feel that a lot of those donors would want the church to have that gift. Now, how much the total death benefit will be or could be is going to depend on some things and how many years of a track record that they have giving at that certain amount, how many years left in the giver's working years. There's some different things to narrow down and figure out the exact insurability for something like that. And of course, the insured person would have to be insurable, as in health-wise. They have to be able to be approved, but it's just an idea that's out there that would be great for any church. Now, another great use for a whole life policy within a church is to set up or enhance a pastor's retirement plan. I know there are churches out there that take great care of their pastor and have a great plan for their retirement, have set up something great for them. And I also know there are churches out there who are not doing such a great job, or maybe even thinking about it. Maybe they just think, the pastor should set that up for themselves. We're not going to worry about that. But I do think that when a pastor dedicates his whole life to taking care of a congregation, I think we should take care of that pastor. I know there are lots of pastors out there who don't make a super large income, and so that maybe they don't set up something really great for themselves or get enough invested or know about whole life or have a great plan for their retirement years. And so it's just really a shame to me when a pastor who's dedicated his life to his church is basically surviving on Social Security in his retirement years and very little in the way of retirement income from the church or from anything they might have saved into. I think that the church can do better and they can set something up and it can be great for both the church and the pastor. Because with whole life, a policy can be set up that will be secure, that will grow on a guaranteed basis for the pastor, and can pay out to both the church and the pastor. Depending on the goals for the church and the pastor, the policy can be set up so that once the pastor hits his retirement years, a certain amount goes out to that pastor to help pay for a certain amount of time in retirement, to help to provide income for that pastor for that amount of time. It also can provide in case that pastor ends up passing away before he gets to retire or fully receive all those funds. It could also be a death benefit to the family so that his remaining spouse and children would be able to receive the amount that he was going to get had he been able to fully retire. And in the meantime, the death benefit is usually large enough or more than large enough to also basically replenish all the premiums that the church paid and then some. So they have growth on the premiums. They're getting a return of all the premiums paid and growth on those premiums returned to the church. So the church is better off as well and can use those funds for missionary projects, community outreach, or mission trips, whatever they can think of to reach more people to share the good news. In addition, the death benefit on a life policy for a pastor within a church will also provide funds at the time they are desperately needed in the event that the pastor were to pass away while still in his preaching years. At that time, the church would likely need resources to keep everything running while they search for a new pastor, and giving in attendance might be down during that time. And of course, should the pastor live a full life as expected, And as I just mentioned, a portion of the whole life policy cash value could be used to fund his retirement, or a portion of the death benefit given to his survivors should he pass before receiving his retirement funds. So, in summary, IBC is fantastic for churches. It's great. And I don't think the word's out there enough. I know that there are churches that know about IBC and are practicing or implementing it. I just think it's super great. Great for the community, great for the nation, great for the church, great for just more people in general to jump on board and protect their money from the banking system. Well, I know that this episode may not have been super helpful for all of you, but I do hope that for many of you it was, and that you can kind of see how awesome IBC can be for churches, and maybe your local church, just because we can build those policies even more favorable within a tax-free exempt entity such as a church. As always, thank you so much for listening. It's a beautiful summer day out there as I record this. I hope your day is beautiful as well. Take care.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.